my son. Hey everyone. So, real talk, my son scares me. Not in a he's a wild toddler kind of way, but in a sometimes I think he sees things I can't kind of way. There have been a few moments over the years that chilled me to the bone. Let me tell you about the very first one. This happened about 3 years ago, when he was around 4 years old. We were lying in my bed, winding down for the night. He was doing that usual kid thing, fighting sleep, rolling around, mumbling nonsense, and fidgeting with his hands. Totally normal stuff, until it wasn't. Out of nowhere, he suddenly went still. Then I felt him sit up. I was pretending to be asleep, as one does, so I stayed quiet and didn't move. That's when I heard him talking, but only his side of the conversation. What did you say? What? I'm trying to go to bed. You go get it. It's downstairs, that way. No, I'm trying to sleep. You go downstairs. What? Ugh, I can't hear you. Come here. At that point, I sat straight up and flipped on the bedroom light. There was no way I was letting my kid invite whatever the hell that was into bed with us. I asked him, "Buddy, who were you talking to?" He casually pointed to the corner of the room and said, "Over there." I tried to stay calm and asked, "Sweetie, I can't see who it is. Can you tell me? Was it a boy? A girl?" He looked me dead in the eye and said one word, "Monster." Cue the full body chill. Now, I grew up with my own fair share of weird, unexplainable paranormal stuff, so I didn't want to scare him more. I stayed calm, sat with him, and asked gently, "Do you want the monster to leave you alone?" He nodded. "Yeah." So I had him repeat after me, and together we said, "Go away. You're not welcome here." Then my son added his own mic drop moment. "Yeah, leave me alone." 2 minutes later, he was fast asleep like nothing had happened. Me? I stayed up the rest of the night, staring at that corner of the room, wondering what the hell just happened. That was just the beginning. Since then, he's said some seriously creepy stuff, and if you want to hear more, just let me know. The imaginary friend I shouldn't have had. When I was about 6 or 7 years old, something happened that still gives me chills today. One night, my dad heard me speaking loudly in my room and came in to check on me. He found me at the edge of my bed, deep in conversation, with absolutely no one. When he turned on the light, I startled and dove under the covers. He asked who I was talking to. I didn't want to answer. The truth was, I had been talking to my imaginary friend. Only I was starting to suspect he wasn't so imaginary. He had specifically told me not to tell anyone about him because if I did, he'd have to leave. I remember him so vividly. He was a young boy with blonde hair and striking green eyes, and he told me his name was Y. I kept quiet after that night. I didn't want to lose him, and I didn't want my dad to come back into the room and interrupt us again. When I was caught a second time, I started communicating with Y through a secret diary. I'd write down questions, and somehow, I'd get answers. I don't remember how exactly, whether it was my own hand or something else, but the conversations felt real, too real. Y started telling me disturbing things, horrible things about his parents, and how they had been involved in something very dark. Then one day, Y told me, "If you look through the socket above the oven in the kitchen, you'll see where they hid the ones they hurt." So I looked. I climbed up and peered through the socket like he said. What I saw stopped me cold. Behind the socket was stained glass, like what you'd find in an old church, beautiful and broken, flickering faintly with light that didn't belong in a wall. That's when my dad walked in and caught me. He asked what I was doing. I panicked and told him what I saw. He looked himself. Nothing. Just wires and drywall. He tried to reassure me, told me there was nothing in the wall. But things escalated from there. He eventually found my diary, and what he read in it scared him. There were entries about Y, his parents, the socket, and the final warning. Y had told me, "The bodies are under the house." My dad was genuinely shaken. He started researching the property, thinking maybe there was something to it, and that's when he discovered that our house had been built over a church graveyard, a burial site from World War II. I never heard from Y again after that. No goodbye, no explanation, just silence. A year alone with something unseen. I lived in this apartment for a total of 3 years. For the first year and a half, I was there with my ex-husband. The place came through a family connection. My best friend's sister was breaking her lease and looking for someone to take it over. I was desperate to move out of my ex's mother's house and finally have a space of our own. It felt like the right move. At first, everything seemed fine. My ex and I lived there together, and besides one strange incident, the apartment felt normal, until he moved out. For context, the layout was simple, a second-floor unit. You entered into the kitchen, which was open to the living room. Past that was a 20-foot hallway. On the left side were 3 doors, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And at the very end, a door to the laundry room. My ex was a gamer. He had a high-end gaming PC set up in the living room. I used the spare bedroom as my art studio, with my own little laptop for YouTube videos while I worked. He taught me all the basics of tech etiquette. Shut your computer down when you're done. Don't leave it running, especially with cats around. And we had 2 cats, troublemakers, the jump on everything type. So I always made sure to shut the door to my studio when I wasn't in there. One night, I woke up to the sound of a video playing. It sounded like it was coming from the living room, so I assumed one of the cats had stepped on my ex's computer or something. I drifted back to sleep. But in the morning, I found out it wasn't his computer. He had gone into my art studio before work and turned off my laptop. I immediately felt this cold, crawling anxiety. I never left that computer on. It required a password to log in, and I had shut it down, like I always did. The studio door had been closed before bed, and stayed closed all night. Even if somehow the laptop had turned itself on, it wouldn't have logged in, much less opened YouTube and started playing a video loud enough to wake us up. We both agreed it was weird, but with no real explanation, we eventually brushed it off. But then, everything changed. After our divorce, he moved out and took the cats with him. It was just me and my dog now, and that's when things started getting dark. My Great Dane always slept in the bedroom with me, but even with her there, I felt uneasy. I never felt alone, but not in a comforting way. There was always this subtle, invasive feeling of being watched. It clung to me in certain areas of the apartment, especially the hallway and the laundry room. Then came the smell. I don't smoke. Neither did the previous tenant. But the smell of stale, old cigarettes would randomly appear and disappear. Sometimes it was in the hallway, other times in the laundry room. Occasionally, I'd smell it the moment I walked through the front door. My best friend confessed something strange too. Back when her sister lived there, she hated walking down the hallway. Said it always gave her the creeps. Her sister, though, swore nothing ever happened in that apartment. And she'd lived there for 10 years. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling. And then it got worse. 6 months after the divorce, I started dating my current boyfriend. Sometimes he'd stay over, partly because I hated being alone there, and he didn't like the idea of me being alone either. By that point, I was genuinely starting to wonder if someone was living in my apartment without my knowledge. It sounds wild, but I lived in a rough area. Homelessness was common. At night, I'd hear movement in the kitchen, rattling, subtle shuffling. But my doors and windows were always locked. Then came the night that still haunts me. It was around 2 a.m. My dog, who is the definition of calm and unfazed, suddenly sat up at the foot of my bed and started growling. Deep, low, protective. Her ears were up, teeth slightly bared, staring into the dark hallway. She never did that. I sat up, my heart pounding. I told her to hush so I could listen, and that's when I heard it. Creaking floorboards, Shuffling footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Coming down the hallway, toward my bedroom. My blood ran cold. I was certain someone had broken in, or worse, had been hiding in my place all along. I quietly slipped out of bed, reached under, and grabbed my pistol. I stood by my doorway, holding my breath, listening. The footsteps got closer. I peeked around the doorframe, heart racing, and there was nothing. Still, I searched the entire apartment. Every room, every closet, every cabinet, every window and door, locked, nothing. And yet, I know what I heard, and so did my dog. After that, sleep came hard. My boyfriend began experiencing things too, waking up suddenly in the middle of the night, panicked, with a crushing sense that something was in the room with us. And one night, we both heard the silverware drawer slam open and shut. We didn't even get up to check. At that point, we were trying to pretend none of it was happening. Then came the moment that made it all feel real. Outside my own head. I was headed downstairs to check the mail. My building was above a small restaurant, and I ran into the owner. We chatted, and I mentioned I was moving out soon. He paused. Really? Did you ever experience anything up there? I was caught off guard. I thought he meant noise or people in the alley messing with my trash. No, he said. I mean unexplainable things. In the apartment? I went pale. Actually, yeah. Why do you ask? He told me employees and customers of the restaurant had seen apparitions, experienced objects flying off shelves, and felt that heavy, oppressive feeling of being watched. He said one tenant who had lived in the front apartment used a Ouija board once, and after that, things really got tense. He even brought in a self-proclaimed medium who claimed there were energy vortexes in the basement. I didn't know what to make of that, but I did know I had spent over a year trying to convince myself I was just imagining everything. That conversation shattered that illusion. The final thing that happened before I moved was small, but chilling. My boyfriend was brushing his teeth down the hall. I was in bed, and my dog was coming in to lie down for the night. I casually said goodnight to her. A moment later, my boyfriend walked into the room and asked, "Who were you talking to?" I said, "The dog." He looked at me strangely. "I heard you say goodnight twice. I thought you were on the phone." I had only said it once. We moved out shortly after. I don't like the dark. This happened last night. We have a rental property about an hour from our home. It's currently vacant, so we installed a few motion-activated cameras inside just for peace of mind while we're trying to get it rented out. Around 10 p.m., my wife gets a notification from the system. Movement detected. Just one of the bedroom cameras. She asks me if I can drive over to check it out, make sure everything's still locked up. I agree, and tell her to text me if anything else pops up while I'm on the way. I pull up to the house around 11:30. The driveway is quiet, nothing unusual, except for one thing. I can see a light on in the basement. We always leave everything shut off when we're not there. Already on edge, I walk around the outside of the house. I check every window and door. All locked, nothing broken. It doesn't make sense. Right then, my phone rings. It's my wife again. Another motion alert. This time, again from one of the bedrooms. She asks if I've gone inside yet. I lie and tell her I'm just unlocking the front door now. In reality, I was still standing outside, trying to gather the nerve to go in. I told myself maybe the camera picked me up through the window. I didn't really believe it. I just needed something to hold on to. Finally, I open the front door and shout, "Anyone in here? I've already called the police. They'll be here any minute." I pause. Nothing. Not a sound. I check every room, closet, bathroom, behind doors. Everything's empty. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm not alone. I steel myself and head down to the basement to turn off the light. As I reach the bottom of the stairs, I notice the hanging cord for the single ceiling bulb is swinging gently back and forth. Just that one cord. Nothing else is moving. The air is completely still. I do a quick sweep, fast but thorough, before pulling out my phone to use as a flashlight. I reach up, grip the cord, and pull. The light clicks off, and at that exact moment, I hear a loud bang upstairs, like something heavy slamming against the wall or floor. I don't waste time. I bolt up the stairs 2 at a time, already reaching for the front door. It's right next to the basement steps. As I step outside and start pulling the door shut behind me, I hear something that makes my blood run cold. A voice from the basement. "I don't like the dark. Please stay." I slammed the door, got in my car, turned the engine over with shaking hands. As I pulled out of the driveway, I looked back and saw the basement light turn back on. I called my wife and told her I was on my way home. She sounded rattled. She had just gotten another notification. Motion detected. Basement camera. The eye in the hospital. My uncle's paranormal encounter during his time in the army. My uncle served in the army for about 15 years, spending a lot of that time in Afghanistan. He witnessed plenty of frightening and unsettling things during his service. But one particular experience still leaves our entire family scratching our heads. On my mom's side, our family has always been strangely in tune with the spiritual. Many of us have experienced things we can't explain. Paranormal, unsettling, even prophetic. So when my uncle told us the story, we weren't shocked exactly, but we were definitely disturbed. Especially because we still don't know what it was he encountered. He was working late at a hospital, one that had been overwhelmed with injured soldiers and civilians. It had been a chaotic and emotionally draining shift. But by the time he was finally getting ready to leave, the place had gone quiet. The crowds were gone, and the hospital felt empty. Too empty. He remembered he needed to stop by one of the offices located downstairs, deep in a part of the hospital where barely anyone ever went, even during the day. At this point, he was alone. Completely alone. As he entered the office, he said a stack of papers suddenly flew off the desk, unnaturally, almost like they'd been swiped by an invisible hand. He was exhausted and assumed maybe he'd brushed against them without realizing. So he turned around to pick them up. That's when he saw it. Floating at eye level, directly in front of him, was a single, disembodied human eyeball. No face, no figure. Just one perfectly detailed human eye hovering in the air, staring at him. He said it never blinked, never looked away. It just held his gaze. He froze. He said he didn't feel fear exactly, more like confusion and a deep, unsettling sense that something wasn't right. The eye didn't move, didn't vanish. It just watched him. Eventually, he backed out of the room slowly and left the hospital without looking back. He's never been able to explain what he saw that night. And honestly, no one in our family can either. It wasn't a hallucination. He was tired, sure, but he was lucid. And this wasn't a vague shadow or a flicker of movement. It was clear, real, intentional. The house on the edge of the marsh. This happened to me when I was 5. For context, I'm actually quite skeptical when it comes to the paranormal, but this happened to me when I was 5 years old. I'm 39 now. And while I don't remember all of it clearly, certain details have always stuck with me. Some like vague dreams, others as sharp as if they happened yesterday. My mom told me the full story when I was 18. She said she waited because she didn't want to traumatize me. My dad, who had split from my mom when I was 10 and hadn't been in contact with her since, told me the exact same story again when I was 21. They had no reason to collaborate. That's what makes me think maybe there's something to it after all. We had just moved to a small town in the UK. Isolated place. Our new house sat right on the edge of an abandoned airfield, bordered on the other side by miles of marshland. It was one of 4 or 5 homes converted from what had once been a large barn. People in the town instantly knew we weren't locals. My mom said whenever she met someone and they learned where we lived, they'd get twitchy. Eventually, one person opened up and said the house was cursed. Supposedly, back in the olden days, town outcasts had used it to practice dark magic. Sounds silly, I know, but bear with me. We had 2 cats, and one time they both climbed a wall in the house, scrambled up it with wild eyes, then turned and stared at me. I had an imaginary friend, a little boy. Other odd things happened, but I'll skip ahead to the ones that stayed with me. I sort of remember this part. Our house had a central staircase with balconies leading off to the bedrooms upstairs. Mine was first on the right. I slept in a cabin bed with wardrobes underneath. Most nights, I had recurring dreams about wolves chasing me through a forest. They always ended at the same moment, me cornered just before they pounced. But one night, the dream continued. I made it out of the woods, turned, and that's when I woke up with a jolt. As soon as I opened my eyes, something slammed a hand against the edge of my bed frame. Startled, I lashed out and hit it, and I felt it. I made contact. Whatever it was, it ran out of the room, right through the closed door, screaming. A high-pitched, inhuman scream. One night, Mom tucked me into bed. My dad was working late. A while later, she heard me screaming. Blood-curdling, terrified, fearing for my life, screaming. She ran upstairs. Our black dog, kind of greyhoundish in size and build, was outside my bedroom door, sitting like it was guarding me. My mom opened the door. The screaming immediately stopped. Inside, silence. But in the middle of the room, every toy I owned was stacked in a tall, impossible tower, higher than I could have reached. At the very top was my musical teddy, the one that played a tune when you pressed its stomach. It was playing. She looked in my bed. I wasn't there. Panic set in. She searched the house top to bottom. Nothing. Eventually, she ran to the neighbors for help. A search began. They found me, fast asleep, in the neighbor's bed. Their house shared a wall with ours, my bed on one side, theirs on the other. We moved out the next day. We rented the house to a local family, owners of the town's Italian restaurant. One evening, not long after, the man showed up at our door, pale. He tossed us the keys and said, simply, he would never set foot in that house again. No explanation. Eventually, my parents arranged to have the house blessed. Before selling, they brought someone in to read the property. This person said there were 2 spirits. One was a little boy. The other was something darker. She said the boy had been hiding from it. I don't know what happened to the house after that. We left the area a couple years later, but a few years ago I found myself working nearby and decided to drive past it. I didn't get out of the car. I parked at the end of the lane and just looked. And then I left. Fast. I swear, I've never put my foot on the accelerator harder in my life. The feeling I got just from looking at it was enough.